I'm Bill McGinnis, District Masonic Relations Officer for District 16 of the Grand Lodge of Texas. Today, December 1st, 1993, we're in Waco at Grand Lodge for the 158th Annual Communication of Grand Lodge. And we're also here today to interview the most worshipful Grand Master for 1990, A.D. Hanna. Mr. Hanna, what do you prefer to be called? Grand Master, Past Grand Master, A.D.? How do you like to be addressed?
I like to be called A.D.
Okay, A.D. For your year in the Grand East, you chose to expand on Grandmaster Leonard Harvey's theme of unity and pride by adding the word commitment. What are some of the things you had in mind when you added that word?
Well, I wanted the brethren to be committed to themselves and to God and their country, and I wanted them to be committed to their lodges. I wanted them to be committed even to their community, to prove that, or to show that they were Master Masons and that what we were doing were good, and hopefully would encourage some of them to join the fraternity,
Lodge leadership had a lot to do with that by some of what you said in your Grandmaster's messages. Did you see that as a big problem facing Texas Masonry that year, or was it getting to be a problem?
I think not so much that year, but it is facing Masonry and everywhere. But in Texas here, I noticed that the membership or attendance at lodges had fallen way off, and it was hard to get a lot of young people to be active, and a lot of leaders that you could use in your lodge were reluctant to take a part in it. So I just thought that it would be real good, if you got them started.
Now, leadership in a Masonic lodge, sometimes people equate that to proficiency in ritual. Is that the only thing you were thinking of, or all around business leadership?
All around business, but also proficiency is very important, because if your lodge officers are proficient, then they enjoy opening lodge and doing the degrees, and then that boils over into the people that's sitting on the sidelines, the Masons, and so it just makes a real fine deal. If they're not proficient, then it's a drag, and people begin to try to help them and laugh and so forth. And
doesn't work out good.
Doesn't work out very good.
You told a group in McAllen your goal for 1990 was making Masonry more visible. Do you feel you reached that goal during your year, and how'd you go about it?
Well, I think we started out that year because I encouraged the lodges to go out into the community and to take an active part in community activities, and at the same time invite the people in the community into our lodges and have dinners and informational time, where you could teach them and let them know kind of what we as Masons are doing and what type of environment we meet in and so forth.
The public's perception of Masonry came up in your year in the form of some brethren writing you and asking you about the attacks on the fraternity by some of the anti-Masonic groups and some of the Christian bodies. 5.5 pages of the 1990 Grand Lodge proceedings are taken up by 2 lengthy letters from you responding to questions about those attacks. And in the closing of one, you said, and I'm quoting here, "I would say only this to our detractors: perhaps you should spend more time praying for your own salvation and be less concerned with destroying those who would improve themselves for the good of mankind." You still feel that way, and why did you feel that way then? What was going on at that time?
Well, Masonry has always been attacked by churches, by religions. And we've come down through into the United States, and even in my own home church, they started out a few years ago that they were going to start talking about Masons, and the Masons in that church and other churches stopped that movement. And then we came along to this big one you're talking about here, and I was just kind of tired of them saying all those things about us, that we weren't Christians and we were satanic, and so I thought that we should kind of answer them back, not stand still like we have in the past. You know, in the past we've always just went on about our work and didn't pay attention to them, and of course most of the time it goes away. But this didn't seem, this last attack didn't seem to be going away, and they were really getting up a lot of steam and was really trying to snowball this thing. And I was delighted that some of our leaders came forth and some of our national leaders came forth because, you know, this particular congregation that was coming out so hard on us was talking about their own pastors. About 27% or so of their own pastors, members were pastors. Mm-hmm. And so they were saying that they were satanic and they weren't Christians, and I just thought something ought to be done about it. And I'm glad that we did do it.
Okay. During your years, is there one thing that stands out that you were very proud of or most proud of, accomplishment during your year?
That I was real pleased with and proud of, and one of them was the Masonic Oak Pavilion that we built my year and dedicated it and leveled a cornerstone on this building in Missouri in May 1990. And of course we had a large crowd of people. I don't remember how many, but it was a very large crowd, and I was so proud to put a building down there that people could sit under when we go down there each year. Another thing that I was very proud of was the Vanguard Awards and the Golden Trowel Awards that I started in my year, and they have been really a successful award. You know, we had I think 717 lodges that qualified for the Vanguard Award, and this award, you had to do a tremendous amount of work in the lodge and also in your community. So it kind of brought together what we were trying to do in commitment of getting the community and the lodge together and the people and family involvement.
Here, there's a cast of thousands that usually help get through it, but there's always usually one that stands out. What about Cletha and her help to you and feelings about your grand year?
Well, of course, you know, any master mason cannot really succeed at anything without he has a good wife, back him up and help him, support him, and certainly Cletha has done that. She's a nice person, even if I do say that myself, and she likes people. She enjoys being with them, and I think all of them liked her, and so she did her part to make my Grand Master's year a success, and I was real pleased, and I'm real proud of her, too, for that.
What about any disappointments or frustrating things along the way? I'm sure there were some, but are there any that really that you would have liked to have seen happen that maybe didn't?
Well, I had one. I can only think of one disappointment I had, and I wish that I probably shouldn't have even removed this charter, but I removed a charter from a lodge that simply would not follow my orders, and I was trying to help them, and they had trouble inside their lodge, and they'd had it for years. It wasn't just something that came up, and I did a lot of research on it, and I tried to get them to square things around, and they just refused. They bucked me. So the only thing to save the Grand Lodge and the Grand Master's face was to pull their charter, and I hated that because you don't ever need to pull a charter on a lodge, but it had to happen, but that's the only thing that I know of that went wrong in my year.
Being Grand Master is a full-time job, and if you had the opportunity, would you do it again?
Probably not if I knew what all it took. However, I did enjoy the 4 years that I was on the Grand Lodge, but I never drove so many miles in all of my life. And of course, I'm used to driving, been in the oil field business, but I'll tell you what, Texas is a big state, and when you start crisscrossing it, you can run into the miles. But it was enjoyable.
Let's get a crystal ball out here for a second and find out, in your opinion, what do you think the future is of the Grand Lodge in Texas, and where is it and Texas Masonry going in in your view?
Of course, as you know, most of us are getting up in older age, and we're getting up in retiring age. We're getting up in the 60s and the 70s. And when I came in Masonry in 1946, after I got out of service, World War II, everybody was getting in Masonry. All the young people were getting in Masonry. And that's been nearly 50 years ago, so we're all about ready to get our 50-year awards. And it seems like that's always, we're not getting any young men in like or enough young men to replace us that are going to pass away soon and go on to our rewards. But the thing that frightens me more than anything is the way we've been decreasing our membership each year. When I came in 1946, I think we had about 245,000 Masons in Texas. And now we're less than 100 and something, less than 200. So at the rate we're going, losing 5,000, 6,000 Masons a year, we're going to have some real problems here that we're going to have to address in the next few years, because we're going to have to start consolidating lodges. And we've talked about this, and the Grand Masters have talked about this to the brethren, but we're not really getting it over too well. But one of these days, a lot of these lodges are going to wake up and find, Masons are going to wake up and find that their lodges is gone, that they do not have enough members to pay the lights, water, and gas bill. And so when that happens, well, then we're going to have, and I really, of course, I know Masonry will be here forever. I'm not worried about that end of it, but I'm concerned with the young people that they have no interest in anything really of this nature, and hopefully they'll change, and they get up about 40 years old, get their families raised, maybe they'll change and come into Masonry and keep it going, because it's a fine organization.
On that note, in closing, I'd like to ask you, as I have all the other Grand Masters that we've interviewed, this question. What would you say to that newly raised Master Mason, that young guy that has taken time out and joined the craft, that's just starting out? What would you tell him about his Masonic road stretched out ahead of him?
Well, I'd like to first tell him that he needs to be active in his lodge and to learn everything he can about Masonry, but not go at it too fast to where he deserts his family. He needs to spend some time with his family and some time with Masonry, and that he should take it kind of easy. You know, we're kind of prone anymore when we get a young man in Masonry, we want to start putting him right through the chairs and just get him strung right on out. And sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. So I think if we go a little slow, learn a lot about Masonry and take it easy, well, it'll be a lot better.
Grandmaster Hanna, thanks for joining us today.
You think that's all right?
Yeah, okay. Hey, Dee, I understand that during your grand year you allowed the Texas Lodge of Research to meet outside the state of Texas. Is there something about this that we need to know about?
Yes, we met in Altus, Oklahoma, and I had did a paper on the Altus and Mangum lodges that were originally Texas lodges, and then they discovered that part of the territory belonged to Oklahoma, and after a big fight, well, Oklahoma got the territory, and so the lodges had to change over to Oklahoma, the Oklahoma lodges. And we discovered, brother Pete Martinez, I believe, discovered in our proceedings that they had forgot to pay $2 dues on changing over on this, and he calculated this out over the years, and it was several $100 that they owed us. And so we approached them while we had the lodge going, and so they really didn't want to pay it, you know, and they were giving us a lot of friendly guff over it and all. But Ron Brinkman was there, and he was the Grand Secretary of New Mexico, and he came up and he gave a new $2 bill. He said, I'll pay the $2, and so we accepted that. And then Pete Martinez framed this $2 bill and made all the statement on it, and then he presented it to me at Grand Lodge that year, and it's quite, and it's in our archives now, and It was we had a very enjoyable meeting over there at Texas Lodge Research and Oklahoma Lodge Research.
That's a good story.
Is that enough? Sound all right, Pete?